It is my pleasure to welcome you to the crash course Quantitative Research Papers. This part is about the third section of a quantitative research paper. It is about the hypothesized model and the research questions. Of course, not always you have a hypothesized model, but more often than not, you have. Here, I would like to explain what is such thing as a hypothesized model, what are good research questions, and I would like to use these two hypothesis model and research questions. I would like to use to elaborate on what lies at the heart of quantitative research. Or in other words, what is the fundamental logic of quantitative research? Furthermore, I will show you an approach how to develop research questions, and that might also serve as an approach to an overall empirical research project. Now, let's dive into what are hypothesized models and research questions. Back to the basics, quite often that is good in life. So what is measuring? Measuring is assigning numbers to empirical objects or characteristics. Just think of an online questionnaire and you have the question, with what gender do you identify? Male, female, non-binary. Whatever is ticked, if male is ticked, the online questionnaire tool will write a 1 into the dataset. If female is ticked, then the tool will write a 2 into it. And if non-binary is ticked, there will be a 3 in the dataset. That is assigning numbers to empirical objects or characteristics. That is the definition of measuring. But we're not doing this as a lovely pastime. We have an objective with it. And that is to obtain a simplified image of reality. And exactly that is the definition of a model. And I will show you on the next slide that models and theories you can understand as synonyms. So, with this simplified image of reality, we want to test theories. Let me elaborate further, and I hope this will become clear. Here I have a hypothesized model, or in other words, a theory, that consists of the constructs work satisfaction and organization commitment. And we assume, deduced from existing literature, that work satisfaction has an effect on organization commitment. And this effect we want to test with our empirical research. When I'm highly satisfied at work, I should be very committed to my employer. If I'm not, if I'm quite dissatisfied, my commitment should be rather low. And that is what we want to test with empirical research. The research question in this case would be, does work satisfaction have an impact on organizational commitment? We could also formulate a hypothesis which would be, work satisfaction has an influence on organizational commitment. At this point, you do not necessarily need hypotheses in quantitative research. All the articles, I was the first author. I've never used a hypothesis so far. I always used research questions. But, and that is again a very big but, as quite often in research, your research questions need to be clearly answerable. In our case, does work satisfaction have an impact on organizational commitment? I can clearly answer this and saying, yes, it has, or no, it has not. And a hypothesis needs to be falsifiable. Again, here, work satisfaction has an impact on organizational commitment. I can clearly say, yes, that is the case, or no, that's not the case. This hypothesis was falsified. This means with quantitative research, you live in a black and white world, or yes or no world. There's no thing in between. It's oversimplifying. It has to be clearly, so research questions have to be clearly answerable, yes or no. hypotheses need to be falsifiable. That's okay for the moment, or no, it's wrong. Keep this always in the back of your mind. Quantitative research is a black and white or a yes or no word. Let's go a bit deeper into what are models, what is a theory, how can you use a model. So model, I've just said, is defined as a simplified image of reality. The theory I've just shown you consists of constructs which are generalizations of empirical objects or phenomena that are out there in the world. Like there's no such thing as work satisfaction that we can touch. That is a generalization that we've made, and we constructed something that is a construct. But a theory does not only consist of the constructs, but also their relationships. Now, every theory is a model, as every theory is a simplified image of reality. But not every model is a theory. Think of a toy train. A toy train is a simplified image of a real train, but that is not an academic theory. However, in the academic world, you can treat the terms model and theory as synonyms. There might be someone who makes a distinction, but I personally would say that is a bit of nitpicking. And in quantitative research, my recommendation for research practice is use hypothesized models. That will make your life much easier. It's not always possible, but in more cases than not, it is possible. I said that it will make your life much easier. The reason being, everything you do in your theory section is dedicated or targeted at developing your model. And then everything you do in the empirical part is dedicated to filling your model with numbers. So, in proper words, to test your model. To give you an example, this is from an article I wrote with two co-authors and I've used in this crash course before. It is the effects of servant leadership on commitment to supervisor and the effects of the facets of commitment to supervisor on the dimensions of organizational commitment. So my co-authors and I, what we've done is, in the theory part, we focused on developing this hypothesized model. And then to the right-hand side, you see one of the main results or result figures. There we filled our model with the numbers. In this case, we used structural equation modeling, and here are the facets of servant leadership. On the right-hand side, the facets of commitment to supervisor. And we could fill in the numbers, which in this case are the path coefficients, how strong is the impact, and the significance levels. Simply said at this point, is there actually an effect or is there no effect? But to the inferential statistics part, we will come later during the crash course. Again, use, if possible, a hypothesized model. The theory section will lead to this model, and the empirical parts, they are dedicated to filling this model with numbers. Now your research questions. They're closely related to such a hypothesized model, and they state the goal of your research. What would you like to find out? Quite often, but not always, it makes sense to have one or a few central research questions. You can understand these as your strategic goals you want to achieve or you want to reach. To answer this central research question, or if you have a few of these central research questions, you should formulate subordinated research questions. You can understand these as your operational goals, which you need to achieve first to then get to your strategic goal. Quite often, such a hierarchical structure of research questions make very much sense. Of course, you do not necessarily need to use research questions. You can also use hypotheses instead. Now, when are these research questions or hypotheses, when are they of good quality? The first thing is, you cannot come up with any research questions or hypotheses just because of your gut feeling. No, doesn't matter how good your gut feeling is. Everything you do with regard to research questions, or to be precise, your research questions themselves, they need to be comprehensively and conclusively deduced from theory and state of research. Furthermore, you need to be very precise in your formulation of your research questions. They need to be differentiated and conclusively answerable. I would like to give you two examples. An example I used before. It is an article I had the honor to author with two co-authors. It is about how people evaluate anti-corona measures for the social spheres. And there we also integrated the theory of planned behavior with its constructs, attitude, subjective norm, and perceived behavioral control. On the top left, you see the hypothesized model of this research, and the evaluation of an anti-corona measure depends on the attitude, subjective norm, and perceived behavioral control. In the context of this research, you can understand the attitude as the protection that this anti-corona measure gives me from the virus and its consequences. Subjective norm refers to the opinion of others and my willingness to follow these opinions. And perceived behavioral control in the context of this research means how well can I integrate the anti-corona measures in my life. As human beings, we are all social beings, so virtually all of us are social beings, and we're not living in our own bubble all of the time. Therefore, we have the social spheres. And then, on the lowest level of the model, are these social spheres, which are the close family, my friends, my colleagues at work, and the wider society. These constructs might be of different relevance to the people. So just think of a lovely, great marriage. Of course, I want my close family be protected from the COVID-19 pandemic. Or think of a marriage that was on the rocks and was already going south, and I like my mates more, with whom I can have a few pints in the pub and watch the rugby. Then probably that my close family, my partner who's not so beloved anymore, that she is protected, I would probably not think that is too important. But my friends, with whom should I watch the rugby? That might be of more importance to me. So what I want to come to with these rather extreme examples is these elements, these constructs, might be of different relevance to the people. So we measured the relevance, and we measured how good the anti-corona measures could protect the close family, the friends, and so on. And accordingly, the same with subjective norm, perceived behavioral control. So you can see it's a rather complex model. And therefore, my co-authors and I, developed a hierarchical system of research questions. The first research question goes to the subjective relevance. Which relevance do the attitude, subjective norm, and perceived behavioral control, as well as the social spheres, have for the people's evaluation of anti-corona measures? And then we differentiated which relevance do the attitude, subjective norm, and the perceived behavioral control have for the people's evaluation of anti-corona measures. Furthermore, we looked at the social spheres, which relevance do the social spheres have for the people's for the people's evaluation of anti-corona measures. That's the relevant part. The second research question was about the subjective quality. How good or how well do people evaluate anti-corona measures with regard to their attitude, subjective norm, and perceived behavioral control, as well as their social spheres? And again, we have subordinate research questions, RQ21. How well are the anti-corona measures evaluated with regard to attitude, subjective norm, perceived behavioral control? RQ22. How well do the people evaluate anti-corona measures with regard to their social spheres? Finally, RQ23. How well do the people evaluate anti-corona measures overall? Furthermore, with the method we applied here, you can deduce norm strategies. In other words, norm strategies are already given to you. And for the optimization of the anti-corona measures, we also have a central research question and two RQ31, RQ32, two subordinated research questions. The idea was, with this system, hierarchical system of research questions, that the reader can understand this rather complex research project and the rather complex objectives of this research project. Quite often, as I said, such an hierarchical approach is very fruitful. However, not always. You might be fine with a very simplified approach. And that is the next example. I've also shown you this example in the course of this crash course. And it is about it's coming from the article, the relationship between organization commitment, commitment to supervisor, and servant leadership. On the left-hand side is the model with the facets of servant leadership, which influence, or we assumed they influence, we hypothesized they influence the facets of commitment to supervisor, which in turn should have an impact on the facets of organization commitment. Here we can cover the whole model with two research questions, which are RQ1, which effect do the facets of commitment to supervisor have on the facets of organizational commitment? And RQ2, which effects do the facets of servant leadership have on the facets of commitment to supervisor? So again, we covered the whole research project with these two research questions and clearly answer them. That construct A has an effect, construct B has no effect. And I hope these two examples could give you an idea and serve as a benchmark how you can define a hypothesized model and formulate research questions. How to formulate research questions and to approach a research project at the start, I would like to give you a few information to it. And I recommend using this. What happens normally when you start a research project? You have perhaps rather vague idea in what direction it should go, but you're not completely clear on every detail. In other words, you have a first idea of a central research question. Normally, at least that's the case for me, I'm not an expert on every detail, every publication that came out, so I need to look in the existing literature. I look at the theoretical basis, what are the definitions, what are the basic theories, and I look at the state of research. So you need to go to your desk, get a few articles, read them, you get a better understanding. You have a better understanding of the theoretical background, but you also need to be able to conduct your empirical research. Therefore, on the third step, check that you actually can do your research from a methodology point of view. Is it methodologically feasible? And this circle, you go through and through, over and over again. You come with your research questions, you look in the literature, you check, can I do this on a methodology side? Then you can differentiate your research questions. Sometimes you need to pivot in a slightly different direction, and you go on until you have solid, top-notch research questions. Top-notch research questions are research questions that are solidly based in theory and existing literature, that you can, for which you actually have a method that you can answer them, and then it's happy days. So I cannot give you some number saying you need to go through this cycle 10 times, 3 times, 20 times. But trust me, you will get, if you do this thoroughly, you will get a feeling of saturation where you see, oh, nothing new or really fundamentally new comes to the table. And then you get a feeling and you know, all right, my research questions are very good. And for every research project, it doesn't matter what it is. If it's a master thesis, a bachelor thesis, doctoral thesis, a paper you're writing, a third-party funded research project, that is where the success is or lies. Get the basics right and do the little things right. These are the basics. If this is solidly done, happy days. Then it means you only need to conduct your research thoroughly, step by step, doing the little things right. And take only in quotation marks, it will still be hard work, but this will decide if it is successful or not. If the research questions are not great, then you can put as much effort in as you like. Your project will not become good. So this is of the essence, and I strongly recommend start your research with this cycle. And just to be on the safe side, the foundation of your research is your strong research questions, which are solidly based in literature and are feasible, or you have a methodology for them to answer them. So I strongly recommend against coming up with whatever title you come up with and then try to sort out under this title of your paper. No. Have the research questions first and then deduce the title of your paper. And I can promise you, if your research questions are top notch, it will take you not more than 5 minutes to get the title of your paper. That was, I hope, some helpful information for the third section of a quantitative research paper, hypothesized model and research questions. And also I hope I could give you an idea how to approach a research project. The next parts, which will be 5, are dedicated to the method section, and here I will go deeper into statistics and hope I can explain to you how, not only what is the structural content, but how you do the sampling and deductive statistics, how you do descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. Until then, I wish you all the best, and it is bye-bye for now.